Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of Source and Company. I'm your host, Source. Of course, as always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Smitty Source on both of those. Follow the Source and Company, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. And the show's Instagram is Source NCO Podcast _RVA. I hope that's right. Could be wrong. Either way, let's get into it. Today's company. He has a list of things he does. I can't even run them all down. We'll get into most of them, but he is an MC. He's got album after album after album. He got material for years. He's also a radio personality on WDCE 90.1. He is also the hip hop program director there, correct?
Yes,
sir. Yes, sir. And he's a teacher as well at Sabbath at Stony Point. We'll get into that, how we got into that lifestyle. So much to talk about, from Richmond to family to dealing with a lot of things. Like, this man's had a real life up and down.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it. Today's company, BlackLiq. What's good, bro?
What's happening, yo? What's happening?
Glad you had time to join me real quick, man, so we could get into some things. I got to tell you, like, I've, seen you over the years. I've, known your name over the years, but your IG is what actually made me like, yo, I need to talk to this man directly and hear what he has to say, because one, the quotes, first of all, y'all should follow him at BlackLiq on Instagram. One, because of the quotes and the things that you say, and two, because of the stories that you tell from your life, whether it's through word or video, whatever the case may be. So we got to talk about it. First of all, how you doing? How you feeling today?
I can't complain, man. I can't complain. Trust me on that.
What you got in the mug, man? What you got in the mug?
Coffee, man. BlackLiq drinks black liquid.
Indeed.
All black. Wesley Snipes, man. No sugar, no cream. Just straight black coffee. 2 calories.
Always bet on black. I got you.
Bam.
All right, so I don't even know where to start, man. Normally I start with how has COVID treated people, but we got too much to talk about. We can move away from that and get into some real stuff. So recently, you actually just opened for Big Frida, like, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
How was that? And I'll hold the second question. How was that for you?
Oh, it was, all right, so a rap show, right? Number one, 8 a.m, I wake up and I happen to see that I have a message and it says, "Hey, did you get my message?" And I was like, "Great, a message about a message." And then I look and it turns out the message is, "Yo, Big Frida wants an opener. The show's sold out. We want you to do it." And I'm like, we go back and forth. I'm like, bet. So that's 8 a.m. By 8 p.m, I'm on stage. You know what I'm saying? Doing a 30-minute set in front of a sold out crowd. It's first show in Richmond. It's been that's full capacity at a venue. And it was, that in itself was good enough. But it's a compliment when you're challenged to rap for an audience, or to perform, to present your music for an audience that doesn't necessarily fit your demographic. And people believe in you enough for you to be able to present your music in front of anybody and know that they'll vibe with it, because they ain't gonna book no lame. It wasn't no like, we're just friends and I'm gonna hook you up type deal. Right. You know what I'm saying? It was like, yo, I believe that, you can get over in front of these people and get under their skin. So like, that was the big thing and the big challenge for me. And being unfamiliar with Frida's band or brand beyond the diversity aspect of it or whatever, and the inclusivity and positive vibe, I was hoping that they would be able to connect, and that with having no expectations, I would have a great time. And I was right. It was so fun.
Word. Did you have any reservation? Honestly.
Nah. Look, I don't say no. I say, let me know. It's one of my rules to this. You know what I'm saying? And I've played like people's the diversity aspect, whatever. People try to throw that gay shit up and everything like it's some sort of problem. That has nothing to do with anything, man. People are people, and everybody wants to have a good time. everybody loves entertainment. More importantly, everybody loves music and identifies with hip hop because there's hip hop in all of us. So I didn't care whether it was a bounce artist. We're riding 808s together. I didn't care whether it was an audience that does this or that. We all love people. We all love each other. So like, I was like, at the end of the day, if I get on the stage, it's not about who doesn't mess with my music. It's about who does. Like I remember this Master P quote about how he was on tour and he said that he'd get on stage and he'd be super hype. And this was before he was known. And he'd be like, maybe there was one person in the crowd that really vibed with my music. And he was like, I was there for that one person. And I've taken that story with me everywhere I go in life, every stage I touch. I don't care about, I've performed in front of over 1,000 several times. I performed in front of 15 people many times, you know what I mean? I've done it all. And it's always just about connecting with that one person. So the only way I could have hesitation is if like, I really don't know how I could have hesitation, honestly. Like if the only way is if they offered me too much stage time, perhaps, you know what I'm saying? And it was taken away from somebody else. That's the one way I would have been like, well, hold on, you know what I'm saying? Let's make this work for everybody. Cause it's not success if it can't be shared.
Thanks. You know what? That's funny. You said it's not success if it can't be shared. I remember, well, first of all, a long time ago, I wrote some article like 20 years ago for a small hip hop magazine that was in Virginia. I think it was like down in the beach somewhere. And the cover said, Virginia is for haters.
Yeah.
And you rocked a shirt that says Richmond is for haters.
Yeah.
And I've always had that feeling, but it may be for different reasons. But you just mentioned that, everybody together is better than, people split apart. So what's your feeling on Richmond now as opposed to maybe in the past?
Yeah, so I mean, Richmond is for haters fit because in Richmond we love something, so everybody else loves it, and then we hate it. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody else loves it, and then we love it again later once they've kind of moved on, or when we're forced to be in the presence of it. We're like, oh yeah, we love that shit. People are always like, yo, Richmond don't support me because they don't support us, and that's a lie, in my opinion. It's what people don't support are your expectations and entitlements. And any man who falls down in the city can't be picked up by this city. I've always had that fortune in the sense that I've surrounded myself with people who have uplifted me, and the people who tried to hate on me or tear me down have only built me up. So, I'm glad that we're past the photogenic phase of unity. Like I wrote a piece for a college in Chicago or in Illinois that's coming out later on this year about the summer of 2020. It's gonna be published in their folk guide or folk gazette, like their yearly thing. And it's about the summer of Richmond. It's called Hindsight Goes Beyond 2020. And it's about how the protest era and all that felt like a cookout that was being thrown by white people, and how everybody's invited. And it's dumb that is it about the food or is it about who's throwing it, And then all the extra stuff and how far people took it, because a lot of people turned up to turn up. It wasn't about a lot of times what this struggle is about, because if it was truly about what this struggle is about, you would recognize that you can't have change in an instant. For every man and woman must have their epiphany within a moment. And that moment is rarely in synchronicity. That's the revolution won't be televised, you know what I mean? Because it happens inside of your mind, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like Richmond has had a lot of those moments, and it's starting to come from the honeymoon phase as well of the epiphany. But now the challenge is, can Richmond live the values? You know what I mean? Like the cost was too high for us to not live the values, man.
Especially with so much that happened here, like even from then until now. I mean, so much happened here. And I think a lot of times we who live here, we see it happening, but it's like it's happening somewhere else. We don't realize this is right here. Like that's that I don't be out there shit. That's it, they be like, oh, I don't be out there. That ain't it. I don't be out in that part of Richmond. But there was a part of Richmond for once that really felt unified in its experience of our city.
One of the things in the music community that's big or prevalent is the idea that there's 5 different Richmond sounds. You know, there's that other stuff. There's North Side, there's South Side, there's the West End, there's the East End, there's the projects. Like, people will do anything to give themselves an excuse to not have to work together. And then they'll say the problem or the encumbrance towards their progress is that nobody wants to work together. You know, the secret is to recognize that we all have differences. That's what we have in common. It's an equal opportunity towards understanding. And so it was really cool to see people come together out there in those protests and have a chance at having conversations, discussing, walking away different. I got called up by some corporate executives and stuff like that, and they asked my opinion, and I told them, what you can do to add to make this difference in a personal way is to simply approach the way that you think in a new way, through a new lens, to take extra consideration on what might be happening. You know, everybody uses the whole "I got stopped by the police" white privilege story, right? And it's like, you know, you're not doing anything to help the society if, you got pulled over and you think the cop lets you go because you're white and you feel bad about it and you want to take a ticket. It's not doing shit for anybody, bro. You know what I'm saying? But if you can actually look at the situation and try to figure out a way to at least admit that to yourself, and also maybe have conversations with other people and enlighten them in some of the methodology that might allow you to escape unscathed, things like that, or you can at least have extra consideration for the people around you through your lack of experiences. That's where true compassion can come in, and where we can have an actual change when you begin to live those values and lead by example. So that's what I think of Richmond, is that we've had a new example set through the worst possible way, but it's up to us to keep that going. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Yeah, that goes from the music to the streets.
The music is the streets, man, but the streets ain't always the music, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the music will always emulate what's happening in life, but life isn't being lived when it's emulating what's being produced through art. And we have a lot of people who unfortunately feel like they're being artists simply because they're duplicating what they saw on their phone, you know, at the expense of their own authenticity and individuality. You can duplicate anything, but nobody can duplicate you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because ain't but one you.
And that's the most priceless thing in the world, man. That's why every human life is fueled by time. You only get your time, bro. You can't get another man's time. So how are you going to try and get another man's life, let alone take another man's life?
Respect.
Ain't it?
Now, since we're in the hip hop lane, I was going to get to your music a little bit later, but it's a couple of quotes because you drop gems regularly. Like, you drop gems regularly. But it was a couple of quotes in this particular joint that I listened to recently. Madness.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get to the hook in a second. Even before the hook, you said, my mom sleeps on my couch every single night. When I come home late, I check if she's alive.
Yeah.
That joint stopped me for a second because I could picture it happening. But is that, and I know, you know, what I would think you would say is you had a tumultuous childhood.
Yeah, a lot of ways.
That's fair.
It was tumultuous, but it was also you know what, like, you got to be careful when you become used to something. And I got used to a lot of things. I got used to a lot of tumultuous things. So, you know, I get told often, you know what I mean, a lot of people would not be the way you are from the things that you went through. I have an older brother, and he internalizes and has internalized a lot of the experiences that we shared in a completely different way. It's always fascinated me. But yeah.
So was that checking on mom? Well, that actually probably was a lifestyle for you. The checking on
literal. Mom. That was happening when I was writing that song. My mom lives in my house. My father got incarcerated. She lost everything. And she came here, and then she went out west, and she came back, and she's been here since. And she got super sick. She almost died on that couch. So like, you know what I mean? She passes out on that couch. And back then, my mom would not sleep in the bed. She would, for some reason, pass out sitting up on his couch. And I was like, yo, I would come home for something in the morning, and I'd look and see if she was alive. I mean, it's a lot of like things that I do artistically are either about stating my my surreal reality as stark naked as possible, or at least like in some of the storytelling that I'm doing and some stuff that's not out yet, I'm really trying to like my man said when he heard the song, he thought of John Prine, the country singer, because I was so immersed in presenting this person's life. And the art of storytelling is so important in hip hop because you attach yourself to it. You don't hear a song like, you know, Sasha Thumper, you know what I mean? You hear that and it's like you met that person. Yeah. So like a song like Madness, I wanted to put people into my world so they can understand the weight on my shoulders. You know what I'm saying? And when I come home, you know, and I check my mom to see if she's alive, you know what I mean? That's something that I had to get used to. I found myself doing that too frequently, but you know, it's necessary.
The hook of that joint.
Oh yeah,
The hook, like I said, the hook wasn't what I heard at first. I heard the lyric and then I stopped. I was like, that's you know, that's heavy. But the hook is a whole different level of heavy, right? So the hook of the joint is, I hate being alive, but I can't stop living.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like I hear it and I feel it, but what does it mean?
It means as a person who has intense depression, like constantly in waves and mania and things like that, the ebbs and flows, those things make my human experience extremely unpleasant in most situations. But I refuse to allow those things to define my human experience. So the death that might take place within myself on many different levels, on many different times a day, exponentially will never, ever do anything but define the fact that I'm alive. So I can't stop living, you know what I'm saying? And I hate so much of all this, man. But at the same time, I refuse for it to be limited by the hate. I refuse to let life be limited or defined by death. The person who produced that record, Sleaze, he passed away. And I don't look at Sleaze's death as the defining mechanism of his life. I look at Sleaze's life as the definition of his death, because he couldn't have died if he wasn't alive. And, you know, that's what I was trying to get across to people, is that despite the cynical approach or the pessimistic things that precede that hook, because when I wrote that song, I was like, that was my we always joked and said, this is the BlackLiq Pimp a Butterfly record, because like I go into kind of something that feels like aggressive spoken word before each time I go into that hook. And I wanted to show people that you shouldn't be afraid to share your unpopular views, and you shouldn't be afraid to share the unpleasant, uncomfortable way that you feel, and you shouldn't let that stop you from still being a productive member of society, in the sense that you contribute something to people's lives. Sometimes the most positive thing to express is a negative thought.
Yeah.
You know, because what it does, if you hang on to that negative thought, that shit will eat you alive. And so hip hop gave me an outlet to go ahead and make room inside myself. And so I made a lot of room inside myself through that record. And it really it was one of those things, man, where when we did it, you know, when I wrote that, and my niggas were like, yo, like, bruh, you know, that's kind of heavy. And my mom was really like, wow, you know, are you sure you want to put this to people? And I was like, yeah. And you know what? The wild thing, bruh, is I've never told anybody, but there's a sequel to that joint.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's gonna be on. I got an album that we're gonna put out that we've been working like really, really hard on preparing my universe for. And it's on there. And it was so powerful that it ended up being the lead record after we had an entire different concept. It took the record over.
Took your whole album into another place.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. We will be looking for that most definitely. What's the name of the project? Do you have a name of the project?
Yeah, the album is called The Lie.
The Lie?
Yeah. Because hey, nobody wants to hear the truth, man. So I'm gonna tell them the lie.
Tell them a lie.
It just gonna happen to be true.
Wow. I love it. Now you did mention we can't skate. Not that you would, but we can't skate over you mentioning depression and dealing with that. Has it been like? Is it a lifetime thing? I don't know how. I honestly don't know how depression works. Like It just pops up, or
Yeah,
it's always there.
The greatest misconception besides that depression isn't real is that depression means you're sad. And it's not that I'm sad. Depression is often, it comes in many different flavors. Of course, you can be sad and be depressed, right, and have it still be two distinct separate things. But in my experience, depression has a debilitating effect where lots of normal things are the most difficult things to do. And you have to find a way to, like you look at my work ethic and the way that I organize my day, my list, I'm a list person. I'll knock out 27 things in one day, all because they're on the list. And they'll all be fully formed things. But the way that it works is momentum for me. And some days it's harder to have momentum to even get up and get out the bed than others. But what I've done is I've found ways to not, again, be defined solely by that. Pain, sadness, depression, emotions, your mind is a room, or your head is a space. And what that room is full of is furniture. And every emotion, every problem is furniture. And so you can choose to sit in your depression, or you can walk by that chair. And so I just don't sit in that shit. And if I wake up in it, I get up out of it, bro. And that's how I go about it. And sometimes, man, depression is like a vice grip around your brain. You can feel it in every word you say and every single thing you do. But you have to dig deep to go past it. I don't fear death. So I don't feel like a lot of people like it'll kill me if I push on this blah, say blah. Death is the end all resolution to all your problems because it's not your problem anymore. A lot of people say that the feeling of death is like letting go. And that's why, because you realize that the pressures and stressors of the physical are no longer going to be involved. You might be upset about the things you're leaving behind and the people and all that. I would never, diminish with the value of those things. But the limitation of the human experience should not be defined by fear of the end of it. So I push beyond the borders of my imposed limitations that show up in the form of perhaps debilitating depression or sadness or self-doubt or insecurity. All the things you see me post on social media that are gems are responses to a negative thought or experience that I'm going through probably at that moment. And so you see the number of things that I post.
Yeah.
That's what it's like being me. But all day. Yeah, all day. But that's maybe I've been told that's your superpower. Maybe it is, but I don't wear a costume. So it's just who I am.
I'm saying maybe that is part of the coping, or is a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
But that's a great one to have, because not only are you getting it out, not that makes it totally go away, but you're getting it out and you're getting it off your chest. I feel like you're getting it off your chest. So at least it's there. Like sometimes saying things makes them more real. You can feel it.
Yeah.
When you put it in the universe and you hear it, you say it, then it becomes that much more real to you and to other people who might be.
Yeah, from mindfulness to manifestation. Indeed.
Absolutely.
But the other thing too, though, is the other thing that I will say is I learned very early in life that problems are solutions in disguise. The problem typically is that you're stopping at the problem and you're seeing the problem as a problem. The problem with a problem is only seeing it as a problem, because problems intermingle with fear. Fear intermingles with instinctive responses. If you want to break it all the way down to fight or flight, you know your exit route and you know what you would do to combat that. So you've already got two plans. You act like you don't know what you're going to do, but you've already been born with two plans in your mind. So all you really need to do is decide how you're going to handle that. You know what I mean?
Right. You already know. You already know inside, whether you want to admit that you know it or not.
Yeah. And so it's just, and people don't want to pay the price. That's the main thing. They don't want to pay the price because the price is high. But, they'd rather, I always tell people I hate vacations because it makes me feel like I'm saying I need to escape my life. The 2 weeks that I could spend wherever are just 2 weeks that I'm setting myself back from being able to enjoy my present, And so my world is very much experienced, despite feeling existentialized in lots of ways. It is definitely experienced. I look for peace within. I'm not a person who wants to go somewhere and look at things. I want to be places. That's the difference for me. And it's like I've traveled for music and things like that, and that's incredible. But I'm not a sightseer, man. I'm a sightseeing.
Man, my homeboy that I had on a while back as well mentioned depression, and he was just like, going through depression in the past, he said, and he was like, some days you just feel like, I just want to get back home. That's all I want to do is get back home, because there's nothing out here for me to do today. There's nothing I feel like I want to do today. I want to get back home and then be able to start over again. So that I actually felt. I understood that to the extreme, really, because some days, whether it's depression or not, you just aren't feeling it.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. Besides the, and I don't know if this goes hand in hand, but besides the depression, you talked about alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see that you did an interview for a show called My Sobriety not too long ago.
Yeah.
And you mentioned what, 8 months? Was it 8 months? Oh, 8 months. Sorry. 8 years. So
yeah. 8 years, yo. Yeah.
Was that, when you think back on it, do you think that the two are tied? Well, obviously they're tied in some ways, depression and alcoholism. But how did you get out of that?
Oh, well, I mean, like there's a video that whole sobriety story that I told. That's a long story of it. The short story version of the long story is that I had to make a choice to not let my failure be defined by anything but myself. You know what I'm saying? And I had to add to my life by subtracting. And the social glue that is alcohol typically has you stuck with people who ain't about shit. So I was like, I gotta unstick myself from this. And also, when you lower the bar, a lot of people, try to get over on you. And you end up trying to get over on yourself, man. Everybody's trying to get by and trying to get over. You know what I'm saying? But that ain't enough, bro. I'm trying to get ahead. And so I had to travel the path that's least traveled. I tell myself often that the most exciting path is the one of the mundane. Because though it's mundane, it also contains all that is unexpected. When you drink, like I've drank, you recognize that there's a cycle no matter what. There's a guaranteed cycle, and it leads to the hangover. It leads, at some point your focus is compromised. And while I was very fortunate to not have alcoholism interfere with my professional life, I definitely knew that I was headed there. And so I'm a big person. I believe in signs. And I follow a voice that guides me, for lack of a better way to phrase it. And I was given signs that like, yo, you need to stop because this is going to cost you. I was given the opportunity 2 months later to quit smoking weed by myself. A lot of people are afraid to give themselves opportunities. I was running a mile and I was like, I can't wait to get home and smoke an L. And I thought about it. I was like, so you're doing something that requires respiration and is an aerobic cardio experience. It's exhausting. And the first thing you want to do is go home and suffocate yourself so that you can get high, but not experience any elevation. So I was like, I'm going to see what happens. I quit smoking weed with 2 ounces in my possession, just like I quit drinking with 40s in my fridge, and I never fell back on either. I'm one of those people. I didn't follow the 12-step program all the way or anything like that. I read the big book twice to understand the success principles behind it, because, forgotten languages, that all the hidden secrets exist in the recognition that your problems are not new. These are old problems, bro. If these problems were new, you wouldn't have things like the Bible and the Quran or anything. Like, all those spiritual books are really testaments to the problems of man and how simple the solutions are by simply saying, dogs, just stop that shit. You know what I'm saying? You wrestle with an angel long enough, you're gonna walk away with a limb. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of this stuff is. And so, alcoholism and depression coming together, it's a multiplier effect, because alcohol is a depressant. Alcohol creates a false sense of elation and dulls a lot of things. I used most of my intoxication to force the ability on myself to be able to sleep and to be able to not be overly overwhelmed by my senses, because I feel like I'm on acid most of the time. You know, like everything is extremely loud. And when I quit, I had to find a way to turn all that noise into sound. And now I'm in a place where I'm just listening. And it's the best. I'll never need to do the smoke or drink or anything, because this is far more intoxicating than I could ever describe.
Have you ever heard the quote, Pasta Noose? Every word I say should be a hip hop quotable.
Yeah.
That's you, man. That's you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like I said, that's part of the reason I wanted to talk to you, one-on-one. So I mentioned to you earlier that one time, well, more than one time, but one time in particular, in the streets, before I knew who you were, and we were just walking past each other, you dapped me up and you said 5 words.
Yeah.
And they are, I feel like it's it's your tagline. It's not going away. You got it on the shirt. Now it's WOFTD.
Yep.
And it hasn't changed.
Nah.
I'll leave it on you.
Well, yeah, with WFTD, a lot of people think that it stands for words of the day. It stands for watch out for the devil.
Bang.
You know what I mean? The devil's in the details, man. And people get distracted so easily by the details. You know, that's how you get led astray. You know, understanding requires no dialogue. You know, understanding is internalized. You only end up outside yourself when you're caught up in all the details. You start comparing instead of preparing. You start, coveting. You start falling into the different deviations that come from focusing on something besides improving yourself. You know, how is it that self-improvement comes from an external source? That's the devil talking to you. So you got to watch out for the devil, because the devil will convince you that you ain't enough. You know what I mean? That you ain't got enough. The devil will tell you that you don't have. You know, saying not having is not the path to abundance. Abundance removes lack, because abundance is forever. You know, it is self-fulfilling. You're not going to find fulfillment in the empty hole that is the devil, yo. And so I tell people, watch out for the devil was a thought that came to me randomly. And I followed the sign that came with it. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things, just like it led to a lot of interesting conversations. I remember at one point I fell back on saying it to people. I said it enough to a point where I no longer said it to people because they said it to me. And, something that's evident is when people have to ask you about it. And, that was like the turn of the page for me. It was like, all right, so now they get it. Like at one point or another, I'm going to get people on these 3 Ps, man. Saying positivity, perspective, and patience. That's something else I've always believed in. 3D is death, dollars, and dreams, man. There's a whole lot of different acronyms that I stay on deck with. You can call them mantras or whatever. But watch out for the devil is definitely one that has served me and others for life. I've had people tell me that that's kept them out of mental institutions or got them to turn themselves into a mental institution. Like there's been things that have come from having those conversations that have led to epiphanies and different wisdom that it wouldn't have been shared between individuals if it wasn't for that starting point. But the one thing, watch out for the devil, should never be used as perversion is when it's used as leverage of the esoteric. When somebody acts like they know more than somebody else, elitism. You know what I'm saying? When you're like, oh, I know about this, but I guess the new term for that shit is wokeism. You know what I mean? Let's get thrown a lot on me. I love some Fox News because I love to be lied to. And like, they go big on wokeism and all this shit. And it's like, yo, the idea, I used to be invested in the lane perhaps of being a conscious hip hop artist until I realized that to say one is conscious is to mean that it's indicative of an unconscious listener. And if you want to sleep on me, that's fine. My goal is to make sure that you're not sleeping on yourself. You know what I mean? You can't be asleep in this world. Staying woke is also going to mean that at some point you're going to be exhausted. What you need to do is find, balance and open the senses God has given you for you to really internalize what this world is saying. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. And like, I'd watch out for the devil became a thing, man, where sometimes I'd be like, yo, I get into it with somebody or with their pops or some shit. They'd be like, yo, they're like, you're really aggressive about this. And I was like, yeah, but that's how you end up weaponizing truth, because the truth becomes so sharp that it cuts people off. You know what I mean? And that's not the way that you should cut. You should never have to cut somebody to remove them from your existence. You know what I mean? The bridge itself should just no longer be attached. You shouldn't have to cut somebody. You know what I mean? That's violence. You know, violence is the last of the means that are necessary. Sometimes violence is absolutely necessary, but it should be a last resort. The punch, you can become a pugilist. You can punch a man in any place on his body, right? And with different results. You punch him in his forehead, that's the hardest part of his head. It's not gonna do much. You punch him in his crotch, he's gonna fall over. But you know what I'm saying? You punch a man in his pride, he's not gonna be able to get back up.
Heavy words, man. Heavy words. Drop a lot of heavy words, man. You got to be ready when people talk to you. They can't just come to you halfway. They got to be engaged and focused because they're gonna miss something.
I give them all of myself. That's one of the rules too.
But what did you? Okay, so did you at some point just realize? First of all, to watch out for the devil. You said it just came to you. It came to you when you was like a teenager at latest. Because like I said, you said it to me a long time ago. So I remember that joint. But I threw myself off. I forgot where I was going.
Oh, you said you was talking about the fact that the watch out for the devil came from there. It was heavy thoughts. Don't miss that. And then my rewind is always funny too. And then the actual fact that you said it came to me at the early ages where you were going.
Yeah. Well, since we're at early age, I'll run with that because you mentioned that you are a teacher at Sabbath at Stony Point, correct? Oh, you know what? That reminds me of what it was. When did this knowledge, because, all right, so a young lady I used to go to church with back in the day, who I talk to kind of regularly now, she said a couple of years ago, she was like, I don't remember you being this smart, is what she said. And she wasn't saying it to say I was stupid before. She was saying pretty much I wasn't like saying a lot. I wasn't gonna expound on much of anything if it didn't have to do with hooping or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
When did you realize that your thoughts needed to be heard?
Oh, it was I got a story for you. 5th grade. Me and my brother gotta open this Perrier, man. Me and my brother, we got a beating on Christmas Eve. And because we were being entitled bastards. My pops rolled the belt out. We went back. We lived at the Red Carpet Inn on Broad Street, bro. At that point, we was in 340, I believe. Yeah, it was 340. So this is like the projects, that hotel. It was crazy, man. But we lived in 340 and we were being bastards. My pops was like, I'm taking y'all home. You know what I mean? Pops came up hard. So when we got materialistic, he didn't like that shit. Took us home and gave us both a beating with his belt. And my brother cried and I laughed. And I realized at that moment that consequence was from an external source, though of course it's a dangerous line of thought. It's limited, you know what I mean, to how you receive it. You know, that our parents are just people. Before that, my parents seemed like a supernatural force. And then watching my brother get that beat and then seeing him cry and shit, and me realizing that, like, you know what, this is just something that the bark is so much worse than the bite. It made me realize that, like, yo, this is the actual model of the entire world. Like, everybody has no clue what they're doing. They're just people.
It's great though.
Yeah. You said what? 5th grade. Yeah, 5th grade. Yeah.
That's heavy. That's heavy.
It definitely warped. It warped my perception of my childhood. Trust me on that. Like, I knew before that, but I didn't know until I learned that through that experience. When we got that beating, that was the point where it crossed over for me. And from there on, I've never been an overly emotional child. You know what I'm saying? I haven't cried probably since around then, man. Like, because nothing is I trust in life that much. You know what I mean? That I'm not deceived by living. So it's bigger than what moment. A loss, again, the other side of a loss is what you had. So when somebody in my life dies, I don't cry. I'm thankful for what I had, for how much I learned from that person, and that I finally have another person fighting for me on the other side. Because the people close to me, they rode for me like that. You know what I mean? So like, I don't think that it may not be the most healthy thing to say as a child you would come to, because the cost is that I missed out on a lot of imagination and a lot of joy. But at the same time, I also missed out on a lot of other things. And I was very much, before, like after that, man, I mean, I was very, very reclusive and not aggressive until like after eighth grade. I got sick and I found out that I had a really life-threatening illness, and that made me realize like it's time for me to stand up. I've been sitting on this knowledge for a long time, but then when that happened, I decided to start studying life in the world and really start living, to not be afraid to use profanity, to not be afraid to share my perspective, to not be afraid to sharpen my physique by sharpening my mind through exercise. At that point, my war started, in eighth grade. And in high school, I was waiting for what was going to change my life. And I was preparing, and I knew that hip hop would be part of it. I didn't know the incarceration of my father would be, but I knew there was a part of my father that was incarcerated while he wasn't in prison. So I knew that it was coming for me and I had to be ready. And so I spent all those years in preparing myself. And that's how how the knowledge built upon itself, I guess. The life experience. I will say my main, the more I've learned, it's cliche to say, but the more I've learned, the less I actually know. And I try to stay in a position. And what I love about teaching is that you're dealing with people who don't have the ignorance of knowledge. They don't make assumptions. They're completely receptive, and they don't know what right is because they don't know what wrong is, and they don't know what wrong is because somebody else hasn't told them what right is. That's like the best part about teaching. And I treat those students like adults because that's how I wanted to be treated when I was a kid. You know what I mean? And that's what makes teaching such a wonderful thing.
How old are your students? What grade?
It's eighth grade. I do sixth, seventh, and eighth at Sabbath. So you get imagination in sixth, though sometimes you have those ones who are already there. You get seventh, where it's like a mix. Some days they might be in this, but they still are willing to have a certain kind of fun. And then eighth, you get the beginning and the end, and the end and the beginning. And you gotta like work with that. And it's wild when you get to see that person grow from sixth to eighth. And you're like, yo, like I watched you become this person. And the thing that you haven't realized is that who you are now is probably still just a small part of who you're going to become, hopefully. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever see, I don't know how long you been teaching?
Shit, probably like, I'm bad with time as far as dates go, right. But it's gotta be like 9-10 years.
Do you ever run into old students?
Oh, look here, I got another one for you, man. My homie Rice Crispy, right? Rice Crispy, who calls himself Tig now. He at Sabbath, he was a Sabbath student, and he was it was expressed to me that Chris was falling through the cracks, right? And I believe it was either 6th or 7th grade. I was teaching class, pardon me, and I had a beat, and the beat like it kind of was one of them joints, like, on pocket on a beat, percussion built, driven would be it would stop, you know what I'm saying? So you'd have to decide, how am I going to go? Like Bust is incredible when it comes to that. He can fill the gap of a percussion. He can ride the low end, yet make you listen to the high end, to the point to where it's like you're listening to two verses. And that's why his ad libs are so pugilistically placed. But my man stopped. You know what I mean? He kept stopping. He'd be like, the part that was easy to rhyme over, the low end, he'd rhyme and then he'd stop and he'd wait for it again. And I told him, I was like, yo, why you stopping, bro? I was like, my challenge to you is to keep going. You know what I mean? Not to stop in your rhymes, but to keep going, to build over those gaps. And that for him was the key. And that changed everything. And I was told that he applied his hip hop, his writing skills, and his approach and perspective that came from rhyming to every curriculum. So much to the point that on his 8th grade graduation speech, because Sabbath, he graduated 8 and he go to high school. On his 8th grade speech, instead of giving a speech, he rhymed. And now he's on Spotify. He came up to my radio show and he rapped. I got him his first show on the Richmond International Film and Music Festival. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like for me to see that happen, there's been others. But whenever people ask me the story, that's one of the ones I tell them, you know, because that was something that was completely, there's other ones like overcoming self-hatred, things like that, different like emotional things. Because the one thing that I always try to tell my students is that doing something doesn't mean that that's what you have to do, or that's, and what you do doesn't mean that's what you have to be. We're so caught up in the idea of labels. The moment somebody writes a rhyme, they think they got to be a rapper. That's not what it's for. Like in the corporate world, they call it agile thinking. And that's what I'm here to do, is to give you elasticity within your mind so that you can access form through flexibility and flexibility through form. You know what I mean? So like lyricism is to give you a different perspective. And it's also rooted in knowledge of self and identity and self-assessment, self-value, and cultivating an atmosphere of respect mutually between two different kinds of people at different stages and phases and skills of their life. In a cipher, everybody has respect. In a cipher, everybody's respected. In a cipher, everybody is willing to be themselves, even if they go outside themselves. There's a certain thing that's baked into the hip hop experience and a level of intimacy and indulgence and a shared level that is unifying. So I use hip hop for that. That's why my radio show is called Hip Hop for the Rest of Us. And that's like, you know, because that means you, that everybody, the whole radio, when I started that, everybody in Richmond was like, yo, nobody wants to play you on the radio. And I'm like, yo, come to the station, it's rhyme. You know what I mean? I'll get to know you more about rhyming with you than I will through, you know, asking you questions. When I interviewed Homeboy Sandman, I told him, yo, like when I did that for RV and Mag, I sat down in front of that big man. I said, look here, I ain't gonna ask you no questions because I know you got an answer for everything. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna freestyle you a question. You're gonna freestyle me an answer. You an MC, right? And he said, I ain't doing that. And he walked halfway out the room and he stopped and said, I'm doing that. And I said, I know you are, yo. And after that experience, he said, I feel like we'll know each other for life. And we just texted each other a few days ago. That's like, cool. You know, that's how important and powerful hip hop is. It's something that it bonds you on a spiritual level because it's, you know, we don't have to be bonded by trauma, man. You know what I mean? Like so many of us say, oh, that's my man's because we came up in the same shitty situation together. It should be that we got up out that situation together and we found different ways and we learned from each other's different methods. It shouldn't be about the fact that y'all lost together. You should be celebrating the win together. And like, I joke always about trauma bonds, but it's something that it's the chain, you know, of events, but we shouldn't be enslaved by the chains of our events, man.
Bars, as usual. Speaking of bars, you way off topic. Last time I saw you actually perform, you opened, or you were part of the opener for the Roots a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And recently, I didn't even realize. I think I remember BlackLiq coming to Richmond.
Yeah, they were shots though. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we lost the Gift of Gab was MC from BlackLiq. And you shared a video where you were on stage with him rhyming.
Yeah.
Did that ever turn into a personal relationship, or was it just that moment that made you, you know, reminisce when you heard that he passed?
We so I put up a lengthy narrative about that experience because the intention was to go back and forth further. He had me like, you know, we emailed right then. He was like, yo, email me because he wanted to hear the freestyle tapes. So he was like, yo, email me a link because I want to check out the freestyle tapes you're talking about. Because the way that played out is so they showed up and they, you know, I got introduced to the crew. And I'm gonna give you something right here, yo. All right. I'm gonna give you something that people don't know about. So I'm not gonna throw out, I can't give away all the secrets because it's coming. There's something coming that's related to this. Okay. And they ain't announced it, so I can't announce it. But what happened was this. I had this as the story went, you know, my skin was all messed up. and I had a cut, right? Like that, like down on my pelvis, not like down in the crotch area, but down like right below the waistline. I had a cut that was like 2 inches wide and 4 inches long, and like down to the white. You know what I mean? From like the skin thing, and like my belt got me or whatever. It messed me up bad, right? And the other thing, I'm not ashamed to say it, bro, but I lost a quarter of a nipple, bro. True story, bro. Thug life, man. You know, when I went to the doctor was very impressed, and I was like, I know it's like it was like a horror flick. That joint just came off. So you know what I'm saying? When the pelvis joint, when I had that cut, that joint put me in the bed for 3 days, because I was like, I got this show. I'm not gonna miss this show, because I'm gonna rock with BlackLiq. And if I gotta lay in this bed with bandages on for 3 days to get myself healed up enough to where I can move around and wear some pants, that's what I'm gonna do. So I had to slow my life down. You know, Napoleon Hill talks about how Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind was written at a time where he didn't have time, but you know, God put him on his ass, and that's how he ended up having to write it. God put me on my ass so that I could go to the show with BlackLiq and sit down and have a conversation and get introduced to the crew, and have Latif, the truth speaker. After meeting me, we talk and we're chilling, and then out of nowhere, I'm talking to Gab, and Latif is like, "Hold up!" He's like, "You're BlackLiq," and I was like, "Yeah, like really," because I just introduced myself to you. And he's like, "No," he's like, "We're on a record together. We're on that joint together." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Nobody knows about this song that I'm on. It's a feature for somebody who's like pretty major, right?" And he's like, "I'm on that record too." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Yo, that's wild." And you know what I'm saying? He was like, "This is crazy," because there was no plan. And there's no way this could have happened. And I was like, "Yo, that's the universe." And so, you know, Gab, he was tripped out by that. Jumbo was like, "Damn," you know what I'm saying? XL was out on stage. And that connection with Latif, when they were doing their set, because I bodied my set, and they were like, yo, we heard that Green Onion shit and all that. Yo, we fuck with you on that, man. You know what I'm saying? They understood that I was not there to play. And I knew that they get down with the freestyle. So Latif was, during their set, they had a cypher, and I was in the crowd, like towards the back, because I was like doing my merch thing and talking to people who came up to me. And it was really cool, like the conversations. I love talking to people after a set. And so I was doing that, but I saw at the corner of my eye that they were doing ciphers intermittently in their set. So I was like, all I gotta do is go up there, and the energy is gonna pull me in. And I went up to the side in the back side, you know what I'm saying, side stage, whatever. And as soon as they did it, Latif was like, yo, you around with us? And I was like, come on, bro, you know what time it is. And I got up there and bodied, you know what I'm saying? So I'm in a cypher with Jumbo, XL's on the wheels, you know what I'm saying? Gifted Gab is next to me. He's sitting on this stool, and Latif is like, you know, corralling this thing. And I'm in this cypher, and this is a moment in front of a sold out crowd with legends. You know what I mean? And I'm coming off top, because that's how you're supposed to do in cypher. So I came up off top, and I was like, I ain't here to steal nobody's shine, but we're going to shine together. And we shine. And then we ended up after that, again, like I was talking about, like how hip hop brings you together. After the show, we all hung out, man. And me and Gab talked at length. And, you know, I shared to him about the bandages. And that's when he looked at me and he was like, bruh, we on tour right now. And, you know, we're doing shows every other day because I got to go get dialysis. I'm waiting on a kidney. And that I like to be the insecurity that came with me being on stage in some bandages under some clothes was immediately disproportionate in such a way. While in premise, certainly we're both battling something, but for him to go on stage and do a show like he did, and the way he was emceeing, and he's in need of a kidney and a dialysis, it just made me realize, yo, this man is a warrior, and so am I. And I got to go harder. You know what I'm saying? I gotta, it doesn't mean that I need to go so hard that I harm myself. It means that I have to let go even of my own sense of pride. I have to let go of whatever, even one grain of fear is unacceptable. You know what I mean? So that was what really, how we connected on that personal level, and what led to him being like, yo, email me the joints and everything. But then like right after that, that's when the pandemic, like a week later, shows started getting canceled. And then, you know, later on down the line, he got his kidney. And I don't know. I haven't, you know, talked to Latif, because we still communicate. I haven't talked to Latif about the story, because honestly, I don't really care how people die. I care about how they lived. And people like with my man Freeze, you know what I'm saying? That was like my brother. I knew him since high school. When Freeze passed away, everybody hit me up like, yo, how did he die? And I was like, yo, you didn't care how he lived. So why do I need to go into the details or speculation? That shit ain't got nothing to do with anybody. You want to know about somebody's life, you look at when they were alive. You know what I mean? That's what hurt me the most. I did 3 shows with DMX, man. And, you know, it was tragic DMX. And the saddest thing from watching that Drink Champs interview was seeing that DMX had finally found a way to live. He had finally decided he was ready to live, and that's when he died. It doesn't take away from, you know, that's one of the greatest inspirations of my life, man. I got to talk to him a little bit, but like, you know, it was, X is another person who was 100, you know what I'm saying? Because he was who he was, you know what I'm saying, whenever he was. There was, you knew in an instant that you were getting all of this man. If he was in a bad place, you were getting all of it. You weren't getting like, oh, I'm a little bothered. You got 100% of that negative energy. If he was positive, he'd give you everything that he had on him right then and there. You know what I'm saying? That was X. So like talking to Gab, you know what I'm saying, after years later for me next, like I always greet any man as a peer. You know, I know millionaires, I know broke people. We're all the same because we're people. And I introduce myself as a peer and I appear as a peer. You know what I mean? And the only time I'm gonna be gone, you know what I'm saying, is never, because even if I disappear, I'm never gonna diss my peers. And when I went there and I met that man and we talked and we built, it was incredible because you could sense the experience and the timelessness of his presence. And that he was truly, true mastery is expressed through your humbleness. People say hip hop is such a competitive art, and it's like the only person you're competing with is yourself. If you're competing with someone else, it's out of envy and fear, because you're like, you can't take this from me. I'm me, you know what I'm saying? And you're you. I can't take, people are like, people come to the radio and be like, I'm gonna out freestyle you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how is that possible? Because you're not me. That's like me saying, I'm gonna out freestyle you. How? I can't ever be you. I'd have to stop being me to be you. And I can't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Me.
Yeah, like I can't. And people will be like, yo, I'm this podcast, I'm gonna out Smitty, yo. I'm gonna do that. Like, man, how ridiculous do you sound? You know, and that how petty and again, you have to think the focus on someone else is to minimize the value and true brightness of your spirit. It's to dim yourself, you know what I mean? Like to throw shade is to produce the shadow, and you're gonna end up in it. I live as the sun, so sometimes it's hard not to throw shade, you know what I'm saying? Because I shine like one. But at the same time, I want to bring a man to the light the moment that he feels like I'm dimming his shine. That's my obligation.
Ain't nothing street about me, more like a light post shining above all who are y'all to boast. Another positive news line. Wow, that's another one. 2 positive news lines in one podcast.
Hey, deja vu.
Yes, sir. No, I didn't even get to the radio, but I feel like this is a great point. We should break here because this is dope, and I feel like you've given a lot. I feel like you've given a lot. So in pure DMX fashion, you give of yourself, seems like completely when you're immersed in whatever you're doing. So I greatly appreciate that, and I greatly appreciate your time today. Any last word? Not that you haven't shared enough gems, but any last words for the people?
Yeah, I'll do the shameless plug, but the shameless plug isn't to be about themselves. The thing is like, yeah, I got some big things I'm going to be announcing soon, and a lot of different initiatives, and also some partnerships with some really powerful brands that are going to help elevate what I've created and creating. And the idea behind that is not to say, oh, I finally did it, y'all, I came up. The idea is to empower and inspire others and show them that it does pay off when you pay dues. And when you take your time, and instead of letting time take you, you only become more. You know, a lot of times people try to make time be the reason why they make less of themselves and say, oh, it took you that long? I ain't never been late for anything, yo. You know what I'm saying? I'm always on time, you know what I'm saying? Just like Nas said, never on schedule, but always on time. You know what I mean? Just like how X and Ja both had the song, I'm not there when you call, but I'm always on time. You know what I mean? X said it in a song about God, and Ja Rule said it about a song that's like an R&B joint for love. But either way, it was all about love. So, you know, the thing that I would love for people to understand is that everything that I do, every aspect or avenue or representation of my success is something that I'm willing to give to you, because you can't take away from this abundance. The only way that I want you to take away from this is for you to understand that it's yours too, because it's been inside you. You don't need me, but we do need each other. And so that's what the radio is about. That's put up to the recent post, Wendy Day, that's another great friend of mine and a mentor. She shared that I just started this initiative through the college radio and through WIR 97.3 as well, that I really want to start playing people's music more and receiving submissions and have them be heard to my audiences and their audiences. And I want them to understand that it's possible. It's all possible, man. You know what I'm saying? When I started this, I was on food stamps, bro. But I didn't let money be the thing that defined my success. I let the utilization of my time and my human experience define what success meant to me. And that's why I'm successful in such a unique way. But I also did not ever cop out and say, I don't need to be a failure in this world to be a success in another. I have over 800 credit score. I have a lot of money that I didn't have when I was doing this. And I'm going to tell you that you can't buy success. But what you can do to multiply your wealth as well and learn about life from the other people's perspective is to indulge in financial literacy. It is to build your credit, to pay your bills on time, and to realize that in this cashless society, the one thing that you can do to make your money more is learn how to leverage debt, to have serviceable debt and make your assets not liabilities, but to leverage them off the certainty that comes from your work ethic. So, I would hope that people would take away from what I've put into this world that it's all the same thing, because the truth is universal. I don't got time to sell you a lie, except when I put an album out called The Lie that I expect you to buy. And yes, I know that did rhyme, but the whole point is that it's about the fact that the truth is within all of us. We have to reach a point of reconciliation to build at affiliation, because if you don't know who you are, I don't want to know you. I want to help you find yourself. And I want to help you recognize your successfulness. That's what I threw Face Me on Friday for 8 years for. I did 43 events. I put drama on stage. I was the first person to put drama, aka Shelly, on a stage in Richmond. And it was all out of love and the fact that I saw potential in a man and saw potential in himself. I want to expose people further to the greatness that's possible with the seeds that were sown from their birth. That I want them to understand the fruits of their labor are nothing compared to the fruits of their spirit. And that, you just have to be able to see that there are no shortcuts to this life. It's only through death that life gets cut short, because we always want people to be around longer than they are. But that should never stop us from diminishing or looking down on the value of the time that we have. And so I want people to use their time and to see that in the way that I've used mine is something that hopefully you can find a way for you to leverage yours. You know what I mean? And that's it. That's what I want people to walk away with, man, and then to walk forward with. Because even if you feel like we're not headed in the same direction, I'm pretty sure we're headed to the same place.
Respect. Again, I appreciate you joining me, BlackLiq. Once again, y'all make sure y'all follow him on Instagram at BlackLiq, and pay attention to the shows, check the radio, merch. We got a lot going on, and I'm sure you'll see him in these Richmond streets. Watch out for the devil one time.
That's right, brother. Watch out for the devil, yo. Peace.
Oh, sure.